This baby will save our marriage, John. Rachel's voice carried that specific tone she used when she'd already decided something and wanted me to think I had a choice. She stood by our kitchen island, one manicured hand resting on her barely visible bump, the other holding her phone like it might contain the secrets to marital bliss. Interesting theory, I said, not looking up from my coffee. Right up there with money can't buy happiness and size doesn't matter. She shot me that look, the one that used to make me apologize for breathing wrong. Now it just reminded me why I kept a mental scorecard of her bullshit. I'm serious, John. We've been drifting apart, and now we have something to bring us together again. She moved closer, and I caught a whiff of expensive perfume, the kind she only wore for important meetings. Funny thing about drifting, it implies both people are floating away from each other, but I'd been standing still for months, watching her sail towards someone else's harbor. When's your next doctor's appointment? I asked, stirring my coffee counterclockwise just to annoy her. She hated when I did that. Thursday at 2, why? Just curious about our miracle baby. I finally looked up, giving her my most supportive husband smile. Wouldn't want to miss any important developments. The truth was, I'd been tracking her doctor's appointments for weeks. Turns out, Dr. Mitchell's office closes at noon on Thursdays. But the Marriott downtown? That's where Rachel spent her Thursday afternoons, usually checking out around 4:30. I'd give her credit. She was thorough with her lies. Fake appointment confirmations, medical pamphlets strategically left around the house, even a pregnancy app on her phone that she'd show me religiously. If deception were an Olympic sport, Rachel would have a wall full of gold medals. You know what? I said, standing and kissing her forehead. You're absolutely right. This baby is exactly what we needed. Her smile was radiant, victorious. She had no idea I'd already ordered the DNA kit. The package arrived 3 days later, plain brown box that might as well have contained the nuclear codes for how carefully I handled it. I waited until Rachel left for her yoga class, which, according to the Find My iPhone app, was actually a wine bar called Sable and Sage. Nothing quite like discovering your wife's favorite downward dog involves another man's bedroom. I followed the instructions precisely. Swab, seal, ship. Then I sat in my home office, surrounded by 8 years of marriage photos, and waited. The irony wasn't lost on me. Rachel thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. What she didn't realize was that I'd been watching her moves for months, learning her patterns, understanding her tells. When someone thinks they're smarter than you, they get sloppy, and Rachel had gotten very, very sloppy. 3 weeks later, the results arrived. I stared at the envelope for a full minute before opening it. Part of me hoped I was wrong, that the late nights and secretive phone calls had innocent explanations, that the credit card charges at restaurants I'd never been to were just her treating herself, that the new lingerie I'd found in her drawer, tag still on, receipt nowhere to be found, was meant for me. But hope is just disappointment wearing a fancy dress. The paper inside was clinical, definitive, 0% probability of paternity. I read it twice, then set it down next to the photo on my desk, the one from our honeymoon where Rachel was laughing at something I'd said, her head thrown back, genuinely happy. That woman felt like a stranger now. My phone buzzed. Text from Rachel. Working late again, don't wait up. I checked the time. 6:15 p.m. Her work ended at 5. I typed back, no problem. Love you too. Then I opened my laptop and started planning. Here's what I learned about my wife in 2 weeks of actually paying attention. She'd been screwing Derek Holbrook for 6 months. Derek with his perfectly styled hair and his BMW that cost more than most people's houses. Derek, who worked 3 floors up from Rachel at Morrison and Associates. Derek, who had no idea his own wife was about to become very, very informed about his extracurricular activities. I know because I'd been documenting everything. The beauty of modern technology is that it makes infidelity incredibly easy to prove. Rachel thought deleting text messages was enough. She didn't know about cloud backups. She didn't know I'd figured out her new password, our anniversary date, how romantic. And she definitely didn't know that I'd been taking screenshots of everything. Derek, for his part, was even sloppier. His Instagram stories showed him at the same restaurants where my credit card was charged on Rachel's girls' nights. His LinkedIn had him attending conferences in cities where Rachel claimed to have business trips. My favorite was the photo he'd posted from Miami, sunset cocktail, fancy hotel pool in the background. The timestamp matched exactly with Rachel's corporate retreat where spouses weren't invited. I'd even seen the hotel robe she'd accidentally packed home. But I wasn't just collecting evidence. I was learning their patterns, their weaknesses, their pressure points. Derek was married to a woman named Lindsay. According to her Facebook, she was a kindergarten teacher who baked elaborate birthday cakes and volunteered at animal shelters. The kind of person who posted inspirational quotes about love and trust. I felt bad for Lindsay. She deserved better than Derek's lies. She also deserved to know the truth. So I made a decision that would have shocked the old John, the one who avoided conflict, who smoothed things over, who let Rachel steamroll through his objections because it was easier than fighting. I was going to meet Lindsay Holbrook. The coffee shop she frequented was called Grind, a hipster place downtown with overpriced lattes and baristas who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. I'd watched her routine for 3 days before making my move. She came in every Tuesday at 3:30, ordered a vanilla latte with oat milk, and graded papers at the corner table by the window. Today would be different. "Excuse me," I said, approaching her table. "Are you Lindsay Holbrook?" She looked up, confused but polite. "Yes? My name is John Chen. I think we need to talk about our spouses." The color drained from her face, but she didn't deny knowing what I meant. That told me everything. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. "Officially? 2 weeks? Suspected? About 3 months?" I sat down across from her. "You? I found hotel receipts in Derek's jacket pocket last month. Then I started paying attention." Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "Is she pregnant?" "Says she is. DNA test says the baby isn't mine." Lindsay's laugh was bitter. "He's been talking about wanting kids. I thought maybe he was finally ready." She shook her head. "God, I'm an idiot." "No," I said, "you're trusting. There's a difference." We sat in silence for a moment, two people whose worlds had been quietly demolished while they weren't looking. "What are you going to do?" she asked. I was hoping we could figure that out together. That's how the alliance began. Lindsay and I, the betrayed spouses, planning something our cheating partners would never see coming. Over the next week, we compared notes. Derek had been using business trips to cover their affair, charging romantic dinners to his corporate card. Rachel had been using her promotion, the one that required so many late nights, as her excuse. They'd been smart about some things, sloppy about others, smart enough to use burner phones for their most explicit conversations, sloppy enough to post photos that could be cross-referenced with timestamps and locations. But their biggest mistake was underestimating us. "They think we're boring," Lindsay said during one of our planning sessions. "Derek calls me his sweet, simple wife when he talks to his friends. Like being kind is the same as being stupid." "Rachel told her sister I'd never leave her because I'm too comfortable," I replied. "She said I don't have the backbone for divorce." Lindsay's smile was sharp. "Want to show them how wrong they are?" The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Rachel had been pushing for a romantic dinner at Meridian, the upscale restaurant downtown where she'd been trying to convince me our marriage could be saved. She'd made reservations for Friday night, probably thinking she could manipulate me into some grand reconciliation. I was going to give her a dinner she'd never forget. But first, there was the matter of Derek's career. Lindsay had access to Derek's laptop. He never bothered with passwords at home, trusting his sweet, simple wife not to snoop. What we found was a treasure trove of corporate policy violations. Company policies are very clear about relationships between employees, especially when one person has influence over the other's career advancement. Rachel's recent promotion suddenly made a lot more sense. The photos were damning. Derek and Rachel at company events, standing closer than colleagues should. The timestamps on their text conversations during work hours. The hotel charges from their business trips where they'd booked adjoining rooms. Lindsay helped me compile everything into a neat folder, then sent it anonymously to HR at Morrison and Associates. The beauty of corporate bureaucracy, she explained, is that once they start an investigation, they have to follow through. Derek's been bragging about this promotion he's expecting. That's not happening anymore. We timed it perfectly. The HR investigation would begin Monday morning. Our dinner confrontation was scheduled for Friday night. Rachel had no idea that her world was about to implode. Meridian was exactly the kind of place Rachel loved, all glass and steel and pretension, where the portions were tiny and the prices were astronomical. She'd chosen it because she thought the romantic atmosphere would make me more agreeable to her manipulation. She was wrong about that too. I arrived first, taking a table with a clear view of the entrance. The DNA test results were folded neatly in my jacket pocket, along with printed copies of the most incriminating photos Lindsay and I had collected. Rachel walked in at exactly 7:30, wearing the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. Her timing was perfect. She wanted to make an entrance to remind me what I'd be losing if I didn't play along with her charade. "You look beautiful," I said as she sat down, and I meant it. Rachel had always been stunning. It was one of the things that had first attracted me to her, back when I thought beauty and character went hand in hand. "Thank you." She smiled, the same radiant expression she'd worn when telling me about the baby. "I'm so glad we're doing this, John. It feels like we're finally getting back on track." The server brought our menus, reciting specials I wasn't listening to. I was too busy watching Rachel perform the role of loving wife, wondering how long she'd been acting and how I'd never noticed before. "I've been thinking about baby names," she said, scanning her menu. "What do you think about Oliver for a boy?" "Oliver's nice," I agreed, "though I was thinking maybe Derek." She didn't flinch, didn't even pause. "Derek? That's unusual. Any particular reason?" "Just seems fitting," I said, signaling the server for wine. "Red or white?" "Red." She was studying me now, trying to read my expression. "Are you feeling okay? You seem different tonight." "Just excited about the baby." I smiled. Our little miracle. The evening progressed exactly as Rachel had planned. She talked about nursery colors and baby furniture, painting a picture of domestic bliss that might have been convincing if I hadn't known better. She was good. I'd give her that. Every gesture, every smile, every touch of my hand across the table was perfectly calculated. By the time dessert arrived, she'd almost convinced herself that her performance was working. That's when I reached into my jacket. "I have something for you," I said, pulling out the folded papers. "Call it an early baby gift." Rachel's eyes lit up. For a moment, she probably thought I was about to propose renewing our vows or planning some romantic gesture, the kind of grand declaration that would cement her victory. Instead, I slid the DNA test results across the table. "Congratulations," I said quietly. "You're having a baby, just not mine." The transformation was instantaneous. The color drained from Rachel's face as she unfolded the papers, her eyes scanning the clinical language that destroyed her carefully constructed narrative. "This is—" She started, then stopped. Her hands were shaking. "John, I can explain—" "Can you?" I leaned back in my chair, surprisingly calm. "Because I'd love to hear how you explain 6 months of lying to my face." The restaurant noise faded into background static. Other diners laughed and clinked glasses, oblivious to the personal apocalypse happening at table 12. "The baby might not be yours biologically," Rachel said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But that doesn't mean—" "That doesn't mean what? That you haven't been sleeping with Derek Holbrook since March? That you haven't been using our joint account to pay for hotel rooms? That every business trip, every late night, every yoga class was just another lie?" Her performance finally cracked. The loving wife mask slipped, revealing something colder underneath. "You had me followed," she said. It wasn't a question. I didn't have to. "You were sloppy, Rachel. Sloppy and arrogant and so convinced I was too stupid to notice." I took a sip of wine. Did you really think I'd never figure it out? Figure what out? The defensive edge in her voice was familiar, the same tone she used when I questioned her about missing money or mysterious phone calls. That my wife is carrying another man's baby and using me as her financial safety net while she decides what she wants to do about it. Rachel glanced around the restaurant, suddenly aware that we were having this conversation in public. Can we please discuss this at home? No. I folded my hands on the table. We're discussing it right here, right now, unless you'd prefer to wait until after Derek gets fired on Monday. Her eyes widened. What did you do? I made sure your boyfriend's company knows about his relationship with a subordinate employee. Funny how that promotion you got suddenly makes sense when you consider who you were sleeping with. The full scope of her situation was beginning to dawn on her. The baby that was supposed to save our marriage had instead exposed the lie our marriage had become. And now the career she'd been building, the independence she'd been planning, was crumbling too. John, please, we can work this out. The baby isn't mine, I said again. And after 8 years of marriage, neither are you. That's when Derek walked in. I'd been wondering when he'd show up. Rachel's panicked text under the table hadn't been as subtle as she'd thought. Derek Holbrook looked exactly like Central Casting would order for successful corporate asshole. Sharp suit, expensive watch, and the kind of confidence that comes from never being told no. He scanned the restaurant until he spotted us, then started walking over with the swagger of a man who thought he was about to save the day. Rachel? He stopped at our table, ignoring me completely. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, I said before Rachel could answer. Just having a conversation about paternity tests and corporate ethics violations. You should join us. It concerns you. Derek's jaw tightened as he finally looked at me. I think you've said enough. I'm just getting started, I gestured to the empty chair. Please, sit. I insist. Derek, don't, Rachel began. No, it's fine. Derek remained standing, looming over the table in what I assume he thought was an intimidating display. Whatever insane accusations you're making. Insane? I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the photos Lindsay and I had compiled. Let's see. Hotel receipts from your corporate card, photos from your Miami trip during Rachel's conference. Oh, and this is my personal favorite. Text messages where you call me Rachel's pathetic husband. I held up the phone so he could see the screenshots. Derek's face went white. Where did you get those? Your wife, I said simply. Lindsay's been very helpful. The mention of Lindsay's name hit Derek like a physical blow. He staggered backward, suddenly understanding that his own carefully constructed world was collapsing alongside Rachel's. You told Lindsay? Rachel whispered. Lindsay figured it out herself. I just provided confirmation. I stood up, leaving money on the table for dinner. You should probably call her, Derek. She's been trying to reach you all day. Derek fumbled for his phone with shaking hands. The screen lit up with missed calls and unread messages. His face cycled through confusion, realization, and finally, rage. You pathetic excuse for a man, he growled, lunging forward. I'd been expecting this. Derek was the type who solved problems with aggression when his charm and money failed him. But expecting something and being prepared for it are different things. His first punch caught me in the shoulder, sending me stumbling backward into another table. Glasses shattered. Other diners screamed. The carefully orchestrated romantic atmosphere of Meridian dissolved into chaos. Derek came at me again, but this time I was ready. 8 years of marriage to Rachel had taught me how to take a hit and keep standing. 3 months of knowing about her affair had taught me how to channel anger into focus. I caught his second punch with my forearm and drove my elbow into his ribs. Derek doubled over, gasping. Not the smooth corporate shark anymore, just a man who'd overestimated his own toughness. Stop! Rachel was on her feet, but she wasn't trying to help either of us. She was looking around the restaurant at the dozens of phones pointed in our direction, recording every moment of her public humiliation. Security arrived as Derek and I grappled between the tables, but by then it was too late. The damage was done, not just the physical confrontation, but the complete exposure of the affair that had destroyed 2 marriages. I found myself on the floor, Derek's weight pinning me down, when Lindsay's voice cut through the chaos. "Get off him, Derek." Everyone turned to see Lindsay Holbrook, standing in the restaurant entrance, still wearing her teaching clothes, holding a manila folder that I knew contained divorce papers. Derek slowly climbed off me, his rage deflating as he faced his wife. "Lindsay, I can explain." "No," she said quietly. "You really can't." She walked over to our destroyed table and handed Derek the folder. "I filed this morning. The papers are already served. By the way, HR called. Your employment with Morrison and Associates has been terminated, effective immediately." Rachel was crying now, ugly sobs that destroyed what remained of her composure. The other restaurant patrons were still recording, still watching our personal drama unfold like a reality show they hadn't asked to see. "This is all your fault," Rachel turned on me, mascara streaming down her face. "You destroyed everything." "I didn't destroy anything," I said, getting to my feet and brushing glass off my shirt. "I just stopped pretending it wasn't already broken." Derek made one last desperate play. "Rachel, we can still—" "Still what?" Lindsay interrupted. "Still lie to everyone? Still pretend this baby might save anything?" She looked at Rachel with something that might have been pity. "He's been telling me for months that he wanted children. Guess he just didn't want them with his wife." The final truth hung in the restaurant air like smoke. Derek had been using both women, keeping both marriages as safety nets while he decided what he wanted. Rachel had been planning to pass off his baby as mine, hoping to secure her financial future regardless of which man she chose. They'd both been playing a longer game than either realized, and they'd both lost. I looked around at the chaos: overturned tables, broken glass, 2 destroyed marriages laid bare for strangers to photograph and judge. 6 months ago, this would have horrified me. Now it felt like freedom. "I'm going home," I announced to no one in particular. "Rachel, your things will be on the front porch tomorrow morning. Derek, good luck with unemployment." I walked toward the exit, stepping carefully around the debris of our confrontation. Behind me, Rachel was still crying, Derek was still trying to salvage something from the wreckage, and Lindsay was standing quietly with the dignity of someone who'd finally chosen truth over comfortable lies. At the door, I turned back one final time. "You were right about one thing, Rachel," I called across the restaurant. "This baby did save a marriage." I smiled as understanding dawned on her tear-streaked face. "Just not ours."